Good evening, and welcome to the first ATX TV event of the new year. We've missed y'all, and we're looking forward to being back with many more events this spring and the upcoming season 10 of the ATX TV Festival, so stay tuned. For those that don't know, I'm Caitlin McFarland, this is Emily Gibson, and we are the co-founders of ATX TV. This is Dexter, he's the mascot. We are so thrilled to continue our partnership with AMC with The Walking Dead Season 10 screening and conversation. AMC has given ATX TV and you an exclusive first look at the return of Season 10 of The Walking Dead, which will air Sunday, February 28th at 8 p.m. Central.
Personally, I love that we, ATX Television Festival, are also entering our 10th season. Now, I did look it up, and The Walking Dead first premiered on October 31st, 2010. So it might technically be a year and a half older than us, but I'm okay saying we're the same age.
I mean, I think as the younger one, we get to decide that.
Fair.
But for any show to make it to season 10 is super impressive. And after the year that they faced with new challenges, it's even more impressive that they come out swinging and bring the heart of the series back.
We hope you're continuing to stay safe and healthy. For us, we're still on our couches for now and are settled in, ready to watch this exciting new episode, plus a really fun inside look conversation that directly follows with some of the cast and creatives in charge of The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I know everyone already knew this, but we have Scott Gimple, whose title is Chief Content Officer for The Walking Dead universe across 3 series. How freaking cool is that?
That's a really cool title. I don't know how that translates to what we do, but if we can make it happen, I would like that.
Yes, it has to be a one-of-a-kind TV job. I'm so excited to hear from him while I pour a drink and snuggle up on the couch.
So let's do it. With that, we're going to play the episode and then let our moderator, Josh Wigler from Inverse, bring out the panel. So enjoy.
Let's start with your name. Where are you from? Where were you when the fall happened?
We both know this world. The dead. It's gonna catch up to us eventually.
Evil people aren't the exception to the rule. They are the rule.
3, 2, 1!
You could come on home.
He asked how his daddy died. I told him that a bad man killed him. And he wanted to know if that man got what he deserved.
Little pig. Let me in.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to ATX TV for this special advanced screening and Q&A for The Walking Dead presented by AMC. I'm Josh Wigler with Inverse.com, and I'm excited to dig into the episode you just saw and hear even more about these 6 additional episodes for Season 10, how the cast and crew are approaching these news stories both in front of and behind the camera. We've got a great panel joining us today, so let's not wait another second. Let's start bringing them in. First up, Chief Content Officer of The Walking Dead universe, Scott M. Gimple. Scott, how's it going?
It is going well. It's going well, sir. How's it going with you?
It's going fantastic. I'm here with you. So how could it be a bad day? We're also bringing in executive producer and showrunner, Angela Kang. Hi, Angela.
Hey, Josh. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to see all of my favorite Walking Dead friends here, including the cast. We've got Norman Reedus. Norman, come on down.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, Josh.
Good to see you, Norman.
Good to
Lauren
see you too.
Cohan returning. Maggie has returned. Lauren is here. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Josh. Hello.
We also have, of course, Angel Theory is here as well. Angel, welcome to the party.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited about this. New to the panel, new cast member here for The Walking Dead Season 10. Okay, M.A. Ankwari as Elijah. Okay, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Big round of applause for OK. Very excited to have you here. And of course, we also have Joe Alexander, who will be signing for us today. Really excited about this to be continuing the Walking Dead season 10 journey. And I'd love to start with everybody. We'll go down the line. We've got 6 new episodes of the Walking Dead season 10 to start looking forward to. And I'd love to get everybody to give one word to describe what we are in for. And we'll start with you, Scott. One word to describe these new episodes of season 10.
I'm going to cheat with a slash right out of the gate. Intimate/epic.
Intimate/epic. Angela, how do we follow that up?
Oh my God. I feel like that's really good. Mysteries.
Norman.
Trauma.
We can relate. Lauren, one word.
These are just so hard, these things. Trepidatious.
Angel, how
Because
would
I
you
like
describe?
syllables.
How would you describe it, Angel?
Chills. Straight chills.
And okay, bring us home.
Intense.
Well, we have now all seen, if you're here at this panel, you have seen the first of these new episodes. I think all of those words are very appropriate given what has just gone down. Scott, I'd love to start with you in sort of digging into the origin story for these new episodes. Obviously, to bring one of the words that has just come up, trauma. We are living through very trying times, and I think that there is, a lot of television, a lot of creativity being born out of necessity. Is that a piece of where these episodes came from?
Absolutely. This was about getting some great episodes together for people that were hungry for them in the safest way possible. And Angela and the cast and crew came together to do that in a brilliant way, really. There is no asterisk next to these episodes. They are fantastic expressions of what we do.
Angela, let's break it down a little bit, because I do think you get the sense of intimacy, but also epicness, to Scott's point, in these episodes. What was your approach as a writer, leading the writing staff through crafting these 6 new hours of The Walking Dead?
Yeah, I mean, it was such an interesting process, because we had been in the middle of mapping out season 11, which is kind of our normal big, huge, scopy thing. And then once the pandemic hit and kind of stopped us, we had to kind of take stock and figure out what is something that we could do story-wise that we could responsibly do and do in a way that's satisfying for fans and that digs into these characters, but that we can realistically film when nobody has filmed in a pandemic before like this. And so in some ways we had these boundaries that were given to us by production and by our epidemiologist and everybody that's consulting on this, like, hey, like when we first go in, let's try to do this all in our backyard, like on our studio lot. We're a very locations heavy show. So that was one thing that we needed to do. Let's try to do a lot of it outside. Let's limit the number of people, like, so we can get our feet under us and figure out what we're doing. And I think in some ways, like that kind of, the boxes sometimes actually allows you to thrive creatively, because you go like, all right, well, like I know that this is the form that I've got to make it fit in. How can we still make this have stakes and be emotional? And, we've always had for our show this template where we can do stories that dig into more intimate, kind of focused storytelling with our characters. And so we decided to just lean hard into that. Like that's something that we've always been able to do. And some of our most successful episodes have kind of followed that template. And we're like, all right, we get to do 6 of these and really like hone in on these character stories and things that they're dealing with from the past and, those ghosts of the past and how they're figuring out how to move on. And that all felt really relevant and fun for us to work on as a group.
Absolutely. Norman, I'd love to get your take on this. Reading these scripts, hearing about the premise behind these 6 additional episodes, what were some of your first reactions?
I had all these questions. I mean, like Angela said, the episodes are really intimate. And which is kind of a nice break after these giant battle seasons. But I was like, how do we, I'm always up close to a walker, stabbing it in the face. I'm like, how do we do this? And we had all these, there's all these the rules, all the COVID rules. So it was interesting going back in. I mean, story-wise, I really love the intimate stories. It was nice to see how everyone's dealing with the trauma of losing all their friends and being terrorized for so long. Technically, we were very safe, and I think everybody did a really good job with it and getting used to the new rules. But yeah, when you're like holding a zombie back and they have a mask on, and then you flip around and then you have a mask on, and it's all very strange. And we're the type of cast and crew that are we're huggers, we're high fivers, and you go to set and they're like, actor coming through, and everybody sort of parts a road for you, and you're like, sorry, excuse me. There was a lot of things to get used to, but they came out great. And I hope that we pepper more intimate stories in there where you really get, you get characters, you really get inside their head. It was fun to do. I kind of enjoyed it in a weird way.
Angel, coming off of the main season 10 and now sprouting out into these 6 additional episodes, what was your experience like transitioning to these 6 new episodes?
Honestly, I had fun. Like Norman said, it was a lot to get used to, just for the simple fact that, I'm a hugger. So the first thing I want to do is just hug everyone. And that was my only kind of setback in a way, but everyone was still very family oriented. So when we got on set, it wasn't much different with the cast, of course, but with the stories that was being told throughout, it actually helped all of us kind of, I guess, get more of a sense of our characters and their backstories, and just understanding one another, which honestly, I feel like it kind of helped us not feel so separate, so to speak, if that makes sense. Just helped us come together more. And I think with having months of, quarantining and the whole pandemic and wearing a mask and goggles and all this extra stuff that we have to put on every day, it was just nice that, we was able to just come together and, get right back into work and kill it, and have something that I know for a fact the fans are going to be so excited to see. So, yeah.
Lauren, you're back. You're back on The Walking Dead, and we've had you back for a little while thanks to the tower. But now we have Maggie fully back in action. This episode really explores what's going on with Maggie. I'd love to get your experience of not just returning to The Walking Dead, but returning to The Walking Dead in this manner with these scripts, and what your initial reactions were to the character work, to the shifting scope of the production, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, just to second and third everything that Norman and Angel have said too. Just there have been sort of strange gifts, if you want to say, and I mean, in seeing each other already, the reunion for me coming back onto the show is huge, but in how much that these times have informed all of us, the whole world, in just the closeness of friends and people that have your back, and that kind of reunion that both I get to The Walking Dead and that Maggie gets to Daryl's character and to meeting Angel, and these parallels of art and life were very, very strong for me coming back in, and it was it was just sort of surreal. Definitely once, like Norman was saying, getting over those first hurdles of being near people and doing zombie kills from a distance, stuff like this. I mean, my parents were like, so are you going to be social distance walker slaying, or what's the plan? And just, getting over all of that stuff and getting to get back into it. It was really, really awesome. I sort of lost my train of thought there for a second, but but the other thing that I think was really beautiful is that we may not have had the opportunity to have such intimate episodes had we just been gearing up for a big season, and it is so nice to just to get the big action that we'll bring in season 11, but to sort of preface all of that with these deep character stories. I just think the fans, like Angel was saying, are really going to enjoy them. We've gotten to see me and Norman talk together on screen more than I think we have to each other in some of the 8-year season we've had. So it was pretty special and emotional. It was really appropriate for the story. So yeah, it was great.
Okay, you have the experience of not just joining The Walking Dead during this moment, but joining The Walking Dead full stop. I think that those are two very big, important things. I would love for you to talk through your experience of joining the show, and specifically joining the show in this time, what this has been like for you.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it was a bit daunting to step into a show that's really hit its stride and it's come to this point after so many years on air. So I really wanted to take responsibility for the character and try to do my best to bring it to life. Luckily for me, I was already used to wearing a mask, so that translated really well. But the experience,
the safest character on the show.
Oh, you have no idea. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you're fine. You can triple up on all the masks, but there's nothing getting through that thing at all." But the entire cast and crew were very welcoming. I remember getting that first "Welcome to the Walking Dead family" email or message, and then hearing it in person for the first time. And that was very heartwarming for me, and really just let me relax and come and do the work.
Yeah. Angela, I'd love to know where you wanted to start from a story perspective. How quickly was it decided that beginning with exploring Maggie, who's been gone for so long, was the right inroad for these 6 episodes?
I think we knew kind of right off the bat that we really wanted to dig into Maggie, and that was always part of our plan, even for season 11. But I think we'd always kind of thought all right, we'll have this little taste of Maggie at the end of 10/16, and then we'll start to unwind what it is that she's been up to, who's this person in the mask, what adventures has she been on, where's her child. And we just felt like we owed some of those answers to the audience, and we're not giving everything away. You've seen the episode, and it's you're kind of touching on this mystery of what happened to this group, and who's this person that's out there that's chasing them, and that drives future story in season 11. But we definitely knew that we wanted to have a strong entry for Maggie. We really loved the idea of pairing Maggie and Daryl together, because it's just, I loved Norman and Elsie, just amazing in the episodes in season 9 as they're kind of plotting together to get some justice against Negan. And so I think that friendship was something that was really important to show in this early episode, seeing that Daryl and Maggie, they still have this friendship that has carried through the time and space. Daryl is such a loyal person, and he's going to have the backs of his friends, and Maggie coming back even with some brokenness. There's still that kind of that human spirit to her that she's had to kind of push down to survive. And so I think that was something that we always wanted to kind of look into.
Lauren, what was the balance between getting back into Maggie was just slipping into, character, somebody who was very familiar to you, versus how much did you discover that she had changed? Your views on the character had changed. What was the experience of getting back into her skin like?
Yeah, it was the biggest these changes that Maggie has been through while she's been away have been some of the biggest character changes that she's ever gone through. And I think we had, and what I worked from both talking to Angela and kind of figuring out where we had left off and everything, was that the Maggie that we saw hang Gregory, there was a pragmatism and a willingness to make the hard choice. There was that sliver of Maggie that I really wanted to look further into. And then to take her out on the road and to learn everything, which we don't show everything in these episodes, but we allude to it as people know if they've seen it. And then, talking to Angela as well and understanding some of the unspeakable trauma, and just getting to sort of dovetail the potential, the type of leader she could have been with what she goes through and then who she's really going to become. But I feel in so many ways like I'm not just coming back, but like you asked, I am really coming back with almost a whole nother color in tow that she hasn't really had to exercise yet until these episodes that we'll see coming up.
Norman, your perspective on this, Daryl is getting to reunite with someone who's OG, right? Original part of the crew. What has that been like to explore through Daryl, who is in the place that he's in now, more of a leadership position in this current era of The Walking Dead?
I liked the Daryl getting to do it and the Norman getting to do it, to be honest. I liked seeing Lauren's face, and I was like, yes, she's back. Because she is an OG. I remember her first day on set. I remember the scenes that I really liked with Lauren is when, do you remember, Lauren, when we were, I felt really guilty about Glenn, and I was all crying, and you was like, it's not your fault, and he loved you and all this stuff. I loved, those are some of my favorite scenes I've ever shot on the show. So it was great to be able to do some more of that with Lauren. As far as Daryl, Daryl, like Angela said, has his friends backs, and I can tell something really went down, but I'm gonna let Maggie tell me on her own terms. I'm not gonna poke her for information. I know she needs help with whatever is going on, and then there's other people as well who I don't really know. And everybody seems super traumatized. So I tell Carol I'm gonna go with her. I'm gonna help out. And I think maybe Maggie likes to have Daryl there as well because he's familiar, and I know Daryl likes to be there to help Maggie. So it kind of is happening in real time, like a lot of this show does, actually.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah. Angel, we see Kelly is along for this journey as well and has a really wonderful moment, I thought, with Okay's character, with Elijah. Can you talk me through her journey in this episode and being, getting this chance to explore Kelly in this first episode back with the arrival of Maggie, the arrival of a new character in Elijah, how that helped contextualize Kelly for you?
That scene with Kelly and Elijah coming together and her just stopping and, having a real human moment. That's the one thing I really love about this show is that, yes, we're killing, we're going through wars, there's so much drama, but we don't forget to still be human. And she sees something's wrong with Elijah and wants to just make sure that he's okay. And that, you're not alone in this. I understand, what it feels like because we're both young and, maybe the people before us that are older and has gone through this way longer, they know how to cope with things a little easier than us. So I think she just kind of went back, just to remind him like, we're in it together and, don't worry, I've been there with you. Along with losing her sister and not having her sister there, I think it gives her something more to fight about. And instead of, sulking and crying and just staying just depressed, I feel like most people would do, she's getting through it by fighting and being a part of this group and having something to look forward to and to fight for. And, scenes with Maggie and Kelly together, seeing someone else also experience losing their sister on top of Elijah, it's just it makes it more clear that that with everything that happens in this world, she isn't the only person going through it. And of course, we've lost so many people before then, but I think it just kind of just helps her feel like more part of the group in a sense, not just because she's fighting alongside them and having these conversations and building these friendships, but we all have something in common, and that's loss. And that's also what, you know, connects us as people with, you know, meeting the new characters. You know, I feel like Kelly's just open, you know, to meeting people. You know, we all knew her as the heart of the group, just being a very understanding person and, you know, just being chill, you know. So I feel like with her meeting more people, it's actually helping her, I guess, losing my train of thought, but I guess it helps her just stay connected, you know, still feel, you know, like this is what the world is or was like from before, you know, instead of just being alone. And I think for the most part, she's finding herself along this journey, finding herself not just being the little sister, being her own person, so to speak, and taking little lessons from everyone that she meets along the way. With Daryl learning how to track, with Maggie, you know, just being strong within her group and being able to put herself to the side because of, you know, she wants to protect the people that she cares about. And even with Elijah as a new character, seeing how even though, you know, we have to do these crazy things every day, we're still able to feel. And I think, you know, Kelly's just been taking these lessons from everyone and going from there.
Okay, I think you have such a demanding job in this episode as Elijah. I think, you know, the mask, the physicality does a lot of work for the audience in sort of producing mystery and who is this character. And then the mask comes off, and I as a viewer, found it to be a really surprising and emotional moment to see the man underneath the mask. For you, what was the through line that gets you to that moment? How did you get under the mask of this character and begin to understand Elijah to convey that to the rest of us?
Well, I really examined that scene, and I like to pay attention to that dichotomy of what the appearance of the man in the mask looks like and then what is going through his head throughout the entire time. And I think the things I had to remember were my values in being vigilant and protective. And then I think the big idea of the found family versus, you know, just the family that you're born with really strengthens it too, because it's a motivating factor to get through this journey to help protect the people around you. And even the people that you recently meet, you can find that common ground really quickly, as I did with Kelly and of course Daryl as we go through the journey. I think that's really the core of it all.
Yeah. Scott, I know that The Walking Dead it's constantly growing. The universe is expanding. I think with Maggie's return, it's not only just the return of someone familiar, but there's a lot of intrigue and interest in the community that she's been a part of, the people that she has come to know, and the folding in of that through characters like Elijah. For you, what can you say about how this season is not just being intimate in terms of distilling, you know, certain character arcs and really getting deeper with the people we know, but also expanding out and growing this world?
I mean, the finale referenced, you know, a huge storyline in the comics that, you know, literally expands their world and their understanding of how people are living. And then we have that backstory of Maggie and Elijah, and that also very much expands our understanding of how people are living. And in some ways they contrast one another. They're very different stories, but some similarities. And I think this season really shows the possibilities of how different the storytelling can be, or the environments can be, or the lifestyles can be. We're going to see characters face even crazy things, but even small things in their lives that are just so alien to how they've been living that, I don't know, there's still a lot of discovery to be had in this universe, and, this season and beyond that.
Yeah. I'd love to get into some of the action from this episode, because shame on me for expecting that maybe we'd go a little smaller. Instead, you literally blow a guy up. There's the big raid on the walkers in earlier in the episode. It feels just like an episode of The Walking Dead. Angela, how much harder was this to pull off than it comes across on screen?
It's harder. And I'm glad that you felt like it still was like, good amount of action, because it's definitely like for us, like planning everything is so different. And we just have to we're always vigilant, but we have to be even more vigilant. And to do the zombie stuff, there's a lot of little tricks that we're using in there that I won't like give away, but it's like, we have ways to make it feel like there's more going on than, somebody might remember from the day of shooting. And so it's, there's a whole process that we go through. There's now, like, in addition to all the meetings that we do for any of these, like, from the writing stage forward into prep, we do a special meeting just to talk about the COVID safety of a scene, and like what are the ways that we are using, camera angles, or just the way that, like what Norman was saying before, like, in one angle, the zombie actually has a mask on, and in the other angle, he's got a mask on, but you're seeing the pieces and it all cuts together. So I think in that way, like we had a lot of questions about like, well, what can we do within sort of like the limitations we have, and how can we still make it cool and gross? And so we sort of like dug in on like, let's have like, some fun, but also like, let's really invest into like a couple of really memorable stunts, like, with the zombie's head getting crushed and with the big explosion. And so a lot of time and effort was put into kind of like making that very memorable and very cool, with a lot of people involved in executing that.
Norman, from your perspective, filming these scenes, Daryl, no stranger to action, neither is Norman Reedus. Was this different? Did it feel markedly different than some of the ways that you've staged combat scenes of The Walking Dead previously?
Yeah, it was way different. There was a lot of different stuff. I usually like to try to do stuff, this was one of those times I was like, no, let the stunt guy do it. I'm cool with that. And I was kind of getting lost in thought that about Elijah's mask. I'm sorry to go completely off base, but when I read Elijah, and I imagine that he was going to take that mask off and just be like grotesquely disfigured, like just the meanest, gnarliest looking dude ever, with like, his eyes popped out. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then he takes off the mask, and I'm like, oh my God, there's this sweet guy under there that's using it like a kid would put on a superhero cape. And I was like, oh, that's the thing about Walking Dead that I love, not to go completely off. It was like, Rick with that first little girl. It's like, or the bicycle girl too, it's like, oh, you feel horrible. But I was like, what a great character that OK has. I mean, like that, it's so cool. Yeah, fighting stuff, totally different. It was.
Well, no, that's a really great segue to OK, because this is your first zombie encounter. How did it go?
I was so excited. I'm so happy I had the mask on during it, because the entire time I was kind of like, all right. For a zombie, it was definitely an experience, to say the least. To do the head crush gag and then get the spray, that was amazing. That's something I'm always going to remember.
Yeah. Lauren, coming back into this world, can you even compare the ways in which these scenes now unfold versus when you last were on The Walking Dead? The way that these action scenes are just being pieced together, especially in this time.
I mean, it's funny because they don't feel like less to me. I know that they are. I believe that they are, and I know that they were. But the fact that we do blow someone up, and we're covered in guts, and we have this thing with them, it's actually really fun because I'm sure OK can attest to this. That the scene when they're all in the boxcar, the train car, and you have to close the door. It's like it's still so hard not to actually. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so tough or anything, but it's still so hard not to actually go to close the door, go to fight a zombie in a way that's really visceral and adrenaline fueled. And it almost felt more so with less walkers this time, because the danger is still great and you're still giving it socks so that the threat is evident for the characters and stuff. But I do think it was probably a little bit more cleverly disgusting, because we were quality, not quantity. We're always quality, but this was like a high quality of gross. So because that one scene we did, Norman will remember this.
Between
and
cleverly
Angel.
disgusting and high quality of gross,
Yeah.
I think you've got like your marquee recommendations.
Yes. Yeah, we had to do the one at the end twice because we had the guy blow himself up on us, and then everybody was like, "Oh my God, one take wonder! This is great." We run home, we take shower, get home, and everything. And like, first time ever in 10 seasons of this show, we actually need to bring you back in to do it again. So we come back in and have the GAC reapplied delicately, choicely to ourselves, and so it's fun. So you never feel too clean. So you're always on the show. You know where you are.
As we're starting to wrap up, it's such a treat to have these 6 episodes and to really dig in deeper to the characters, especially at this moment where obviously the franchise is continuing and in fact expanding in really meaningful ways. But the flagship is coming close to the end of the line. We have one more really big season coming up after this, and I know that you're already starting to crack into it. So for both Angela and Scott, I'd love to get your takes on this. From now that you're digging into the writing, you're digging into production, even you have a real sense of what this final run of the flagship Walking Dead looks like. Angela, have you been surprised by the process at all? Is it coming together in a way that feels expected to your vision for the series? How much is this? How much are you allowing room for surprise in sort of the landing of the show?
I mean, I think those are all, we're working on it now. Those are all good questions. Like it's this really interesting process because, we've got a certain amount of comic book story that we still want to dive into, but it's also the array of characters is completely different than for the ending of a comic. So there's certain things that we're like, you know what, this doesn't really work. This works if we change this around. There's really deep themes for the final season that we really find meaningful and that we're loving talking about. We're constantly trying to figure out, like, how do we continue to innovate in the story? How do we continue to dig deeper into these people? So like, that's really like kind of our day-to-day. Everything that we started to map out, like obviously got interrupted by the pandemic, and then we pivoted to these, and now we've pivoted back. We're right in the middle of filming the first block of episodes, and that now we are back to kind of our epic scope and scale. And, I've been watching as that's filming, and it's pretty incredible. Like I've got to say, the director and the cast and the crew are doing amazing work on the ground. So, my whole focus is like, I want to land this in a way that feels respectful to the history of the show. Like this has been for many of us, like more than a decade of our lives. And even for people who have come on more recently, I think it's a show that everybody feels so deeply about and wants it to be great always. Like, this is not a show where people like are giving it like, if they don't phone it in, like everybody gives it like 110% every single day. And so we just want to do honor to that always. And so grateful for the fans that have been watching, and hopefully this story like continues to wrap up as we go through it all. It's 24 more episodes, man.
It's not nothing. It's a big
It's
effort.
not nothing.
It's not nothing.
It's a big number.
Scott, I'll just throw it to you in terms of weighing in on that, as Walking Dead is in this position right now.
It's managing our emotions as we do it. Like every script that comes in is just like, oh man, this is the last episode 6. This is the last episode 7. I don't know. That's a good pressure to have. To feel like this thing that you have is sacred. To feel like it. So grateful that it means to so much to so many people, but immediately for the people who make it, for how for doing this with each other, it's incredibly heavy, and we don't want to let each other down. So I guess I'm just saying it's very emotional in a really long way.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Scott, Angela, Norman, Lauren, Angel, and OK. This was so much fun. Thank you all for being here. Thanks everyone who tuned in. To stay up to date on ATX TV events like this one, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to their newsletter, follow along on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at ATX Festival. And of course, be sure to tune in for new episodes of The Walking Dead starting this Sunday, February 28th on AMC. The episode you just watched, it's available now on AMC Plus, and additional episodes will be available to stream every Thursday early on AMC's premium streaming bundle, AMC Plus. Thank you all again. Take care.